Israel-connected staff were brought on by Donald Trump's National Security Council to handle the Israel-Iran portfolio.
The administration appoint a new NSC director, that's National Security Council Director for Israel and Iran, who previously worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense. This is the new appointee, Merav Saran. They write that Saran's appointment gives Israel an unusual advantage in internal policy discussions.
According to a latest Politico article in which a top former Pentagon spokesperson who just resigned spoke out, saying that the past month has been complete chaos, resignations, firings, and
Dan Caldwell is a Marine Corps veteran who wound up until 3 days ago advising the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, on military policy. He was one of the strongest voices in the U.S. government, the Trump administration, against the war with Iran. And his rationale was simple. It's not in America's interest, and many Americans will die, and billions will be spent on a war we don't need to fight. And 3 days ago, he was fired from the Pentagon.
Here is her bio. I'll read a little bit of it, and you can decide for yourself whether or not she's a patriotic American. Quote, previously, she worked at Israel's Ministry of Defense, where she participated in negotiations in the West Bank between Israel's coordinator for government activities in the territories and Palestinian Authority officials. She also penned this article making the moral case for high-tech weapons and, just asking the question, has Israel's military innovations made war more just? It was a long article, let me tell you, but basically her answer was yes. Let's see, back in 2016, she also tweeted critically about the Iran deal from the perspective of Israel, just as the Israeli government has launched a new campaign to pressure the American government to start a war with Iran rather than continue with negotiations towards a nuclear deal.
The National Security Council yesterday confirming the hiring of Merav Saran as its new director for Israel and Iran. Saran has ties to the Israeli Defense Ministry.
She's a joint United States and Israeli citizen and a former official of the IDF. Why would Donald Trump authorize Michael Waltz to hire a former official of the IDF to purport
of the Israeli Ministry of Defense
to purport to advise the President of the United States on Iran and Israel relations? What kind of advice does he think he's going to get from her?
In Iran. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States. Iraq, Iran, and Libya are racing to develop nuclear weapons.
You see, it's not even remotely subtle how the Israel lobby works. Why not just put Israelis into the National Security Council? Who is she? She is Israeli-born, apparently dual citizenship, as you say. Apparently, I don't know that fact. She worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense, no less. And then she showed up on Ted Cruz's staff. And this is how it works. Ted Cruz receives a fortune from the Israel lobby. A fortune. According to OpenSecrets.org, all the data correctly, more than $1 million from pro-Israel lobby groups. Shocking enough, completely unacceptable also for a president who says that his aim is America first. Unbelievable. How are we going to extricate ourselves from this? Where is America first?
War with Iran is almost inevitable at this point. Calls for a joint resolution to authorize the use of the United States Armed Forces against the Islamic Republic of Iran for threatening the national security of the United States through the development of nuclear weapons. Now, this was introduced by Lindsey Graham, who tweeted, "It's always good for any American administration to reassure Israel that we have their back against Iran and their proxies and will provide the necessary defensive capability." But says, however, it is long past time to start talking about offense when it comes to Iranian threats against Israel.
Resolution was authorize the use of U.S. forces against Iran. It was introduced by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. It's SJ Resolution 106, a joint resolution to authorize the use of U.S. armed forces against Iran for U.S. national security reasons, because the resolution itself begins by talking about national security and the United States and Israel and their allies. It goes on to talk a lot about the nuclear program. At the end, it talks about how the president is authorized to use force if Iran is in the process of possessing a nuclear weapon that threatens the national security interests of the United States, or possesses uranium enriched to a weapons grade level, possesses a nuclear warhead, or possesses a delivery vehicle capable of carrying a nuclear warhead that threatens the national security interests of the United States.
So many leaders are pushing towards World War III, especially Netanyahu, who would be bogged down in the entire Middle East. It'd be like the Iraq War all over again, but a lot bigger. Not that America has any interest at all in the Middle East, but would still be pushed in there only because Netanyahu told us to. And World War III, which I really hope we avoid, would be a pointless, senseless war that's only being pushed, not for anybody's benefit except for Netanyahu and his country. Because even though he leads a country the size of the state of New Jersey, he has far too much influence on the superpowers of America, and there's leaders pushing us into war that we cannot win, that we have no benefit towards, and all because one man has expansionist aspirations that are completely unrealistic.
All the obstacles in the way of the creation of a greater Israel have been removed. Just look at this map. Until a year ago, all the countries on this map were under the control of Iran. Whenever Israel talked about occupying Palestine, Iran would actively bombard Israel with missiles through its proxies in all these countries. This was the reason why Israel was largely unable to fulfill its dream of a greater Israel. Israel was trying its best to somehow control these countries so that Israel's borders would be secure, and Israel could do whatever it wanted. Israel's first target was Gaza, and this area was out of Iran's control. Then Israel attacked Lebanon, and this area has also almost been out of Iran's control. Syria was the only country from where Iran could help its proxies in Lebanon and Gaza. But now, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria, Syria has also been out of Iran's control.
Hey, Lindsey Graham pretty much gave us the blueprint of exactly how the United States is going to declare war on Iran. What he said was that Israel is going to basically go to war, and after Israel goes to war, we're going to go and back up Israel. I also want you to take a look at this map here, which shows all of the American bases that are surrounding Iran. Now, Iran has no bases surrounding the United States. We have been surrounding Iran. They have not been surrounding us. Do know that Israel is the one that's going to end up marching us into war, as Lindsey Graham's about to tell us.
Israel over time will have to respond. There's one nation on the planet that's not going to give the Iranians the pass on their nuclear program. That's Israel.
Every time there's an attempt to sell the U.S. and American citizens into participating in or funding a new war, there is a new war with Iran. It's being sold just like the war in Iraq. And all the fear-mongering, Saddam Hussein was on the verge of getting nuclear weapons, he's going to hand it to Osama bin Laden, who will use it to smuggle nuclear weapons into the United States, therefore we have to go to war. And it's coming from the same people who have been debunked and exposed as liars.
The truth is that Netanyahu said in 1996, in a book called Fighting Terrorism, he laid out the whole plan. Netanyahu spells out very clearly the following story. You can't really fight the terrorists, he says. You have to fight the states that back the terrorists. And he laid it out, and he at various times listed the countries. And one list that showed up in the Pentagon just after 9/11 was 7 countries: Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, and Libya. The U.S. using Israel? No. This is Israel using the U.S. as if our military is in their hands, which in effect it is. Well, I regard Netanyahu as having been our greatest disastrous president of the 21st century because he ran American foreign policy for 20 years and he cost us trillions of dollars. And where is the Middle East today? War in Syria, war in Lebanon, war in Palestine, unrest in Iraq, war in Yemen. Great job, Bibi. You did a terrific job.
A war with Iran will be World War III. Iran is not alone, and it will not remain alone. If we go to war with Iran, we are expanding the war with Russia. We're also at a possibility of nuclear war. And if we go to war with Iran, we make the nuclear war, all the more likely. That has been Netanyahu's baby all the time. Netanyahu, I regard as one of the most delusional and dangerous people on the planet. He has engaged the United States so far in 6 disastrous wars, and he's aiming to engage us in yet one more.
Americans are fed up with being Israel's military. It tells you why Americans are fed up with Israel controlling our foreign policy in the Middle East. Oh, Israel really wants that war with Iran. So go ahead and do it then, Israel. Oh, not without us, huh? Not without our blood and treasure, huh? We're sick of it. And why the United States of America has had to pay the price for Israel's decisions in the Middle East. And as soon as the United States says, we're not going to take part in your next war, they don't engage in their next war. Israel, you might just have to settle for something that you struggle with. That's called peace.